This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Today's episode of Doc and Jock is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming soon. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch games and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique interactive specials that give you an additional stake in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be. From 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown to a free round of drinks if a quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your team or player records relevant stats. When the conditions of your deal are met, coupons are sent to your device to show your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play soon. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io and follow them on Twitter and Instagram at ScoreDeals. Score, watch games, score deals.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thank you for finding us. You're listening to Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? I look forward to recording this podcast with you, sir.
Yeah, man, big things going on, huh? We had Jim Leyland on the other day. That was awesome. What else we got going on? You're going to be covering the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame?
This Friday, I look forward to going out to the Max Fisher Theater, covering the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. It's been a good week overall for the network. And from time to time, cause it's just one of those things, and I know we talked about it, where kind of the stars align, things kind of work out where people email you back, they say yes, and a lot of good things are happening because of the fact, and the thing that I told you, 3 years ago was, we're just going to ask. I mean, if we want to go to events, if we want to get credentialed, if we want to get interviews, let's just ask. Let's just act like we know what we're doing and see what happens. And where this thing is going has been unbelievable. And it really was highlighted by our coverage of the Lions game on Sunday. I mean, to the T, 12:40, you can look at it, it's tagged, it's stamped. I told you, the people, what was going to happen to the T. And it's not from, hours and hours of analysis. It's just being a fan that's in the know, watching and having a good time with it. And so when Wednesday rolls around and I wake up and I go, okay, the calendar says podcast with the big circle, I look forward to it because in the end, all we are is, guys that love sports and we love to broadcast. And that's why we do it 7 to 8 times a week, is because we love it. We're crazy enough to still peek into the Tigers, even crazy enough to analyze the Lions, Red Wings, Pistons, even at their darkest moments, when you get validated a little bit by, getting emails that are positive, or when people actually tell you, hey, good job. When you hear later on in this podcast, because we're going to air our interview with Jim Leyland, when you hear a great question and these guys tell us, their insights based upon our question, it just makes you feel good because it's just ideas in our head. And now this podcast has come to fruition. We're a real network, and people are asking us for our time and asking us for our opinions, and it's just fun to do when you do get a little bit of validation. Because shoot, you know me, I'm validating myself every single day just to turn on the microphone and be able to spit out some words.
Dude, it's this whole thing, just like Drake, man. From the bottom, and now we're here. Honestly, I think it's a great story because I always like to sit there and look back and reminisce. I mean, we started this as two guys sitting across from a card table with a laptop that would freeze up in the middle of our recordings all the time. I mean, it was insane. Absolutely nuts the way we were doing it. And it sounded okay. It was decent, but we're light years ahead now.
To keep it current, we were the Sergio Dip of podcasting back in 2013.
We were the Sergio Dip.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, look, I know you want to talk about it. Part of me now on Wednesday feels guilty for ragging on him on September 11th. But, dude, it was so bad that people were like, immediately in this day and age, when you're on Twitter and on the internet, when something goes down, you know it because there's hashtags. My whole journalism stream on Twitter becomes, what's Sergio Trip? I saw it live, and I said to myself, did that guy Xanax get up too fast or what the hell happened? And then I realized, okay, this is a guy that doesn't speak English. But at the same time, when you look at it, the sports media business is not for the weak-minded. When you go out there and give that performance on a sideline report, you're going to face the wrath of not only podcasters like us, but his contemporaries. It wasn't just us. His contemporaries were like, look, you can't go out there and deliver it like that because there's so many people who have died and sent in hours and hours of tape to deliver a sideline report for 3 minutes. And you go out there and you do that, it brings down the whole field. It really did.
Well, here's the thing, though. You got to look at the team he was paired with, too, right? I mean, if it wasn't for him, we'd be talking about Rex Ryan and Beth Moen right now because they're absolutely brutal at their jobs as well. But he sat there and he took the cake. I mean, he sat there and he went all gusto on it. And I don't know, man. Like, you've ever been put in a spot where you're put on the spot and you've got to sit there and you've got to talk. You just kind of freeze up. Like, everything just kind of slows down and you start panicking. You get that cold sweat running down your back. You ever have that happen to you?
A little bit of inside info. Whenever we get the big name guests on, my heart beats a little bit faster because, you wonder, like, am I going to get tongue-tied? Are they going to think we're stupid? And then you know what? You realize when you're on the air and you're broadcasting, you're taping it, we can always edit it out. But at the same time, you just keep it moving. Speak another word. You can throw in a filler word like or and just keep talking. And so the thing that I do is I say to myself, I put in the time. I listen to other podcasts. I listen to other broadcasts. And I'm sure you notice, you're like, wow, John actually listens to the podcast that I do on Friday because I want to hear different opinions. I want to hear how different people broadcast. And so for me, every day, every opportunity that I can to record a podcast is a learning experience for me just to try and get to the level like yourself as a professional broadcaster. I'm nowhere near it. But at the same time, when you listen back from 2013 to now, I sound different. I sound more prepared. I sound a little bit more knowledgeable.
More confident.
I sound more confident because of the success that we've had. And when you look at it, though, I will say, though, when we talk to bigger name guests, I do feel a little nervous because I just want to come off as sounding in the know, and I don't want them to hang up and go, I can't believe I wasted 15 minutes with those douchebags.
Well, I think that's natural, and I think that's allowed. It should be, at least. But, I mean, this kid, and that's what he is. I think he's, 29 or something like that. English is his second language.
We're going to play it here in just a minute.
And he's prime time, right? I mean, he's on the largest football broadcast there is. He's on ESPN. It's Monday Night Football. It's the second game of a doubleheader, so I don't know if the ratings fell off or not. But he is put in a spot where he really should excel, and hopefully he would, but he fumbled.
I got a question for you.
ESPN totally never went back to him. They just
exactly.
left him.
And I got a question for you after we play this clip. This is ESPN reporter Sergio Dip bombing during his Monday Night Football debut.
Line for the Chargers, and here's Sergio Dip.
Beth, Coach, it's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head.
That's the best line. He's having the best time of his life.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, whose fault is it more? ESPN for putting him in that position because he's had to. I mean, some producer had to know that English is not his first language.
But I don't think English was the problem there. I think that was nerves.
You think so?
I think so.
So more of the blame goes to him for bombing on his debut?
Yes, because I just think he was nervous, and the whole entire situation got the best of him. I mean, if you listen to him, English is his second language. You can tell he's a little bit of an accent, but I don't think he was struggling for words. I don't think he was struggling to come up with the language. I think he knew what he wanted to say. He just got tongue-tied, and I think his mind was just going a million miles a second, and he couldn't catch up. I mean, it sounds like he wanted to make really good points, right? Talking about the diversity of Coach Vance, talking about how that's helping him excel in this position in his very first NFL football game that he's coaching. And what ended up happening is it just kind of all ran together, and it sounded like one gigantic run-on sentence. It was like when I sit there and I write sometimes, and then I'll send it over to you, I'll be like, hey, can you read this for me? Can you tell me what you think? And you're like, dude, use a period. It's what it was. He needed to put periods in there, and he needed to punctuate what he wanted to say. It just kind of came out as a blob of bleh, is what ended up happening.
No, exactly, because, in looking at the run sheet in terms of interview with Jim Leyland, you wrote, the linchpin to a decade of completive baseball.
Never completed.
Yes, you did. So,
See, spelling.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see that now.
So we can have fun with
It's
it.
supposed to be competitive.
I come to see it.
Spelling is not my strong. How did I get through journalism school? My wife asks me this all the time. How did you get through journalism school?
Exactly. That's why I go more towards broadcast professional, because you're not a writer. You're not going to do that. You're not going to write 7-8 pieces. You're going to need a copy editor. And nowadays,
Do you realize I sat there and I freelance wrote for like 3 different big news organizations? How did I ever do that?
well, nowadays they're going away with the copy editors. So forget it. Forget about it. Do you think ESPN should have went back to him one more time, or would have been a big disaster? Because they didn't go back to him. The internet was all waiting. Everybody was like, look, put this guy back on. These 2 boobs that are announcing the game are doing a terrible job. Let's put this guy back on for a little bit more entertainment value. But I think they did the right thing. And Sergio amazingly handled it the way you should have. Been like, look, he Googled and he put on his Twitter page how to handle being famous. But his Instagram post, it seemed like once someone got in his ear, he didn't need to make the Instagram post. He dropped the mic when he put on his Twitter page himself Googling how to handle being famous. That Instagram post made me feel sorry for him again.
I didn't see the Instagram post. Is that the one with his Twitter video as well? Because he did a video on Twitter where he talked for like 2 minutes, and basically he just kind of talked about the magnitude of the moment.
Yes, where he's in his hotel room.
Yes.
He didn't need to do that at all.
I don't think so either.
Maybe the gravity of what happened hit him. And nobody likes to be the butt of a joke and a nationwide joke. But at the same time, when he did that on, right away, people supported him, and you just move on. You say, look, I flubbed it. I messed up, but man, it was bad. They compared him to the Boom Goes the Dynamite guy.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think he was the most interesting thing on that entire game. Yeah. Like, the football game was okay, but again, Beth Moen and Rex Ryan absolutely brought it down. It was awful. Absolutely horrible. He was the best thing going. And yeah, I think they should have went back to him so he could try to redeem himself, give him one more shot and see what happens. Sometimes the second time around, you got your feet wet and you're like, okay, I can't crash and burn any worse than I already did. The only way it gets any worse from here is if I take all my clothes off and I run around naked. You know what I'm saying? So I think if you would have went back to him, I think he probably would have sat there and rebounded just fine.
Did you ever flub on air? Did you ever?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely.
When you were a stringer for ESPN, did you mess up a live call-in or anything?
I didn't mess up a live call-in. The thing was, I've never... that was my first time doing it, was for ESPN, right? Mm-hmm. And they want it a certain way. And ESPN is very, very
particular.
Much, yes, it's got to be A, B, and C. And I wasn't familiar with how they wanted it. So like my first 2 calls were no bueno. So Adam Klug, the producer, was like, dude, get your stuff together. And I was like, all right, my bad, dude. Like, I didn't realize you wanted it like that. That wasn't the worst. Probably the worst was my very first live report when I was flying around the city in a helicopter. And I had to do my very first report on air for WWJ. That was absolutely brutal, like so bad. I ended up getting the freeway direction wrong. I got the lanes wrong. What was going on was wrong. I got it all flip flopped and messed up. Like it was like I-94 eastbound. I said it was westbound, or I said I-94 northbound. I-94 doesn't even go north; it goes like northeast. But technically, it's I-94 east. I said north. I-94 north. And the accident was blocking, I believe it was blocking the left shoulder. I said it was blocking the right shoulder. It was a mess, dude. It was brutal. Like, if you were depending on me for traffic reports that day, good luck.
You look at it and you say, in the sports media business, it's not easy. You're going to face criticism all the time, especially from your contemporaries, especially from the nation watching. And to combine it with really bad broadcasting from the professionals, I didn't think Rex Ryan or Beth did a great job at all. But you know what I did? When that happened, it doesn't take long. I mean, you don't have to take a long time to just do what I did. Boop, mute. And I go listen to some podcasts, do some computer work on the side, watch the game a little bit. It was a good game, but if you don't like a broadcaster and that, gets in your head and you don't like it, turn it off. Westwood One does a good job on the radio. You could do that, but if you don't like a broadcast team, don't stick with it. Turn it off.
Yeah, Westwood One does do a very good job.
Yeah,
I like their pairings. Did not like ESPN's second pairing. I really don't even like John Gruden and the other guy. I don't remember the other guy's name, but I don't even like them. Like, I think what ESPN has going on for football announcers for Monday Night Football, absolutely atrocious.
You know what was not atrocious was the Detroit Lions.
What are you talking about?
The end of the game, probably I'll rate as better than the first half. But the first half was terrible, but it doesn't hurt as much because I told everybody it was going to be atrocious. This is the staple of a Jim Caldwell team. Now, we can debate whether we like it or we can tolerate this nonsense going forward, but 1240, you can look at it, the timestamp. We all said, and I knew, if anybody that watched the Lions in the last year, you realize they start slow. for whatever reason, out of that locker room, maybe they're still, reeling from the lovey-dovey talk that Jim Caldwell gives, because probably when he gives a talk, you don't want to run through walls. You want to kind of hug and kiss and slap each other on the butt. But that's just Jim Caldwell. That's not a coach that's going to be the rah-rah guy. Look at if you go to DetroitLions.com after the game, you see his speech is just, hey, good job. He gives all the particulars. He talks to his team the way he talks to the media. We got just one game. We got a long way to go. We got to get better. He's not a rah-rah guy. So when his team comes out and plays that way, look, that's just what happens. But you got to give him credit, too, for all the grief we give him for the nonsense that happens in the first half. You got to give the man credit for, having a team that plays 60 minutes for him. And to walk away from that contest with a victory and to grind it out, even when you're playing like absolute shit in the first half, you got to give the team credit. Started off 1-0, and I like the fact that they pulled away from the Cardinals, who, unfortunately, they got stuck with a couple injuries that were devastating to them. But hey, this is the National Football League, and if next man up, and Detroit Lions pounced on some great opportunities, they won the game. They played a solid second half and an amazing fourth quarter. You got to give credit to them for at least doing that.
Yeah, again, the first half was atrocious. Actually, the first 2.5 quarters were absolutely brutal.
It probably was some of the worst football I've ever seen in terms of guys not knowing when to get out of the end zone, punters getting hurt. It looked like Pop Warner shit, right?
There was a lot of adversity for this team, whether it be their own by taking stupid penalties, your punter basically getting destroyed. And I mean, look, his first punt was really good, 50 yards. I mean, that's awesome, right? I mean, that's going to flip field position all day long. Next thing you know, he's trying to run out of the end zone. He's got to make 24 yards.
Oh, no!
Yes. And then he died. All right? And he was absolutely dead. His knee is gone now. So at that point, you now have to turn over to your field goal kicker, and he's never punted. And he did an admirable job. Did good enough to sit there and win Special Teams Player of the Week. But again, I mean, a lot of adversity for this team. They were able to fight through. I think the one thing you can say about this team is their defense looks good. The one thing I took out of this game was their defense looked good. Look, this defense held this team in it, and they're the reason that they won this game. Because if that defense would have faltered early on, if you go back to when the punter basically died, going back to that play, they sat there and they had basically 6 or 7 opportunities inside the 12-yard line to punch that ball in and to sit there and turn 3 points into 7 points. And the Detroit defense sat there and kept them out on 2 different sets of 3 downs. So, hey, hats off to the defense. They did a great job there. Kept this team in it, kept them relevant until that offense got its legs underneath itself. Once the offense kind of got going, I think you can see that this team looks like it has the capability to sit there and contend with teams that are going to be decent, good to decent. I don't think they're going to be able to sit there and contend with a team like New England Patriots. And I say that, even after New England got embarrassed on Thursday Night Football. I think New England's going to be much better than that going forward. But I don't think that they can contend with a team like that. But I think they're a team that should be on that cusp of sitting there competing for a playoff position. And again, offense I thought looked good. That run game's got some work to do. I like what Matt Stafford showed in the passing game. I like what I seen out of the receivers. Kenny Galladay, again, shows that he's the real deal. 2 big touchdowns, huge plays left and right. I like what I seen out of the offensive line. I thought the offensive line played decent enough. Matt Stafford at times looked like he got frustrated, whether it be with, guys like Eric Ebron or Theo Riddick or Amir Abdullah, just because the plays would break down. But again, going forward, they made the corrections at halftime, came out in the second half. And that's one thing that we've sat there and we've killed this team on, and we killed Jim Caldwell on, is not being able to sit there and make the adjustments to put this team in a position to win games. They made the adjustments, came out, they were firing on all cylinders, and they sat there and they ended up pulling away from the Arizona Cardinals, who, look, Arizona last year was a pretty solid team. This year, I'm not sure what we're going to get. Look, David Johnson goes down. That hurts not only the Arizona Cardinals, but also my fantasy football team. On top of that, Carson Palmer's thrown to the wrong jersey. I'm not sure if he's colorblind or not, but he needs to get that figured out. They lose their left tackle. I think it's like the second play of the game. So that sits there and that affects everything, because now you've got to sit there, you got to call somebody else in. So, hey, kudos to the defense for taking advantage of those mistakes, forcing the turnovers, getting to the quarterback, putting pressure on Palmer, who sat there and had an abysmal game. In the end, it helps the Lions, and I think that offense sat there and was able to feed off of what that defense was doing.
Obviously, we all asked and we said, okay, let's look at this team now collectively in terms of their strengths and their weaknesses. Yeah, you said it. The defense looks amazing. They kept the Lions in the game, even though the offense sputtered early on. But in terms of getting better, in terms of where this team needs to go, what areas of improvement do you think they have to address, like right now, in terms of the meeting rooms, in terms of, hey, we have to clean this up immediately before we get on that airplane to go to New York and play the Giants on Monday?
This is more of a coaching issue. I think the offensive coordinators and all of the position coaches have to figure out what they're going to do, whether they're going to be a pass-first team or whether they're going to be a run-first team, because that run game was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Once they started passing the ball around, you sit there and you always sit there and you get upset because they do a lot of checkdowns. They sat there and they opened up the playbook late in the game and sat there and threw like a 46-yard touchdown to Kenny Galladay. I mean, that's what you like to see and that's what you want to see. And those plays are there. I'm not sure if you have to establish the run first to help those plays develop later on in the game, or if maybe you can sit there and start with your checkdowns, go back to the run, and then you can sit there and go deep. But the coaches have to figure out how that's going to work going forward, because that run game was abysmal, and it didn't seem like it helped set anything up to get this team going forward. And I think that's an issue. I mean, this team, once the offense got clicking, they were good to go. You know what I'm saying? I think that defense is going to hold up and be strong enough, but that offense has to figure out what its identity is going to be, whether they're going to be run the first couple plays or whether it's going to be pass the first couple plays, and then you can sit there and you can kind of move from there.
Do you think they handled the adversity of not having a running game properly? I mean, they stuck with it. Arizona did give them a couple chances in terms of, missing a field goal, not taking advantage of their turnovers. Other teams will punish you going forward. And if you want to look at what a championship team does, obviously you can't turn the ball over that much. And obviously you can't struggle that badly running the football. But at the same time, Arizona has a solid defense. Not every defense is going to collapse on the running back to that same degree. But for me, I just don't have confidence that the offensive line is going to gel fast enough in order for Amir Abdullah to hit the holes properly, to get big runs. So I would go with the notion of using the screen game much more, because here's the problem when you don't run the ball effectively. You become one-dimensional. You can't, use play action. The receivers, the defenders can box out the receivers, and you basically are going to be forced to dink and dunk the entire first half. And so it makes it for a tough watch on that front. But in terms of X's and O's, I think that this team is not going to be a team that's going to light the stat sheet with running stats. But you can mitigate that by using Theo Riddick a little bit more, using Ebron in the screen game, by getting those 4 to 5 yards via the screen or via a little bit more creative plays other than throwing it to Golden Tate. That play's there. It's in the playbook. But the running game, I think it's going to be a challenge. It does need to improve. You have to run the football. They're sticking with it. But I don't want to see situations where, late in the third quarter where you got 12 runs for 20 yards and you're still running the ball on first down. That's going to cause my blood pressure to shoot through the roof. I'd like to see them run the ball more effectively. I'd like to see a little bit more than what we saw in game one. Can they improve it? That's going to be tough. I think also at the same time, the other area you need to improve is, a little bit more in terms of coming out of the gate a little bit faster. You don't have to be in close games, game in and game out.
Start on time.
You can start on time. Come out there and play 60 minutes as best as you can. And because if you come out versus the Giants and you're down 14-0, that crowd is going to be, on fire. You're going to have a team that's desperate and hungry. You can't get behind game in and game out. It's just a lot of pressure. Show up, play, and start the games on time. And I like the notion that there's still area of improvement for this team, and it's going to be fun watching this team on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I like where your head's at with the run game and how to sit there and utilize different play action passing and trying to use the screen game to really help set up and open up that run game. And you're right. Not every defense is going to sit there and be able to collapse on the pocket and sit there and shut down what the run game wants to do every single game. But this team's going to have to stick with the run because that's going to help open up other plays. At some point, they've got to come up with whether, I don't even want to say trickery, but they're going to have to come up with some type of creative play calls to sit there and get some utilization out of their running backs. I mean, when your best runner was your punter who died, I mean, that's an issue. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he got 10 yards on his one carry, and without that, you didn't even sit there, you didn't even break 75 yards for the game total. Oh. You know what I'm saying? That's bad. It's not winning football. You've got to be able to establish the run so that way you can sit there and you can have those long plays downfield to set up the pass. So I think if they sit there and they work out some creative plays, maybe figure out, again, a lot's going to depend on that offensive line. Like you said, you're not sure if they're going to gel fast enough. I like what I seen, especially from the first game, going into this week against a New York defense that's very good. And look, I know that they got their butts handed to them by the Cowboys this past week on Sunday Night Football, but going into the Meadowlands, playing New York, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a struggle. This offense is going to have to start on time. This team's going to have to start on time, whether on both sides of the ball. And you know what? Special teams is going to have to help this team out. I mean, Dwayne Washington put this team in bad spots 2 or 3 times with just errors trying to sit there and bring the football out of the backfield. You can't have stuff like that happening. You know, all 3 phases have to be clicking if you're looking to get a victory this weekend.
So, Monday Night Football, everyone's going to be watching. The nation's going to be watching. The Giants, bro. I mean, I don't want to puff my chest out, but I think if you're the Lions, you have to go into that game being really confident because Eli Manning is just a shell of himself. Even if you have a 75% OBJ, I think you can take away some of the things that he does and limit him. The Lions secondary has shown that they can compete game in and game out. So I know people say that, you know, the Giants are going to be hungry. It's going to be, you know, a game for them that they have to win. But I think that the Lions can go in there and punch them in the mouth. I'm thinking here today that if the Lions start on time, if they can establish Golden Tate, if Eric Ebron does a little bit more, if that running game can produce, this might be the game we've all been asking for, a game where you go out there and you destroy the New York Giants. You break their will early, you go out there and you have the confidence that you're a good team, you go out there and you pressure Eli Manning. Dude's old as hell. Dude needs a lot of time to go out there and execute those plays. So I say, look, go out there and pin your ears back and blitz the hell out of him early on, see what he's got. I see 2 turnovers potentially from him throwing the ball to that secondary. And I potentially, I mean, obviously, I'm sitting here riding on cloud 9 calling this out for the Lions. But if the Lions go out there and perform, there's enough talent to destroy the Giants. I'm thinking in the neighborhood of maybe a 17-point win for the Detroit Lions.
Wow.
I think that if they have confidence, the Giants, they don't, you saw that. You saw what they were able to do versus Dallas. Nothing. Yep. You pressure them. You have the team to go out there and make things a little bit uncomfortable. You have to go and execute it. But I see a potential for an ass-kicking here.
The big weakness that New York has is their offensive line's not very good, and that in turn leads to their quarterback, Eli Manning, not being very good. On top of that, he's already turnover-prone, right? So if the Detroit defense can sit there and somehow force a number of turnovers, hey, look, I'm not expecting them to force 4 like they forced against Arizona, but if they can recover 2 or 3 turnovers and then somehow turn those into points, whether it be 3 or 6, I like the way this team's projected, and I like the direction that they're heading. I think Detroit can go into New York, and I think they can get a win. This game right here will tell a lot about how this season's going to go, and I think if they can beat New York, if they can put the pressure on the quarterback, force the turnovers, recover them, turn those turnovers into points, and then on the flip side, sit there and get their pass game going, because the one thing that the Giants do have, they have pretty talented defensive backs and cornerbacks and safety help over there. So they're able to sit there and really lock down the receivers. On top of that, they've got a really good defensive line. So that offensive line for the Lions is going to be put to the test this week. If they can keep Matt Stafford upright and he can complete some passes, I think it looks really good for the Lions. I think it might be a little bit closer. I would expect the Lions, if they do win, and again, remember, I have them projected to lose this game. If they do win, it'll be by 3 points.
All right, good solid opening talk regarding the Detroit Lions. We're going to take our first time out, and we're going to come back and address Michigan State. A fun weekend watching them, both teams 2-0, but a lot of concern has been expressed for both squads, and I look forward to breaking it down with you right after this. I want to tell you guys about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project back in 2013, when we were in the basement, we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio, and thank goodness we found Podomatic. Our host site since 2013 has been Podomatic.com, and we use them because we're able to generate quality links. We're able to upload all of our recorded audio very quickly. Within 5 or 10 minutes, when we're done editing a podcast, boom, we are able to generate quality links and get out our product to all the masses. If you're going to start a brand new podcast and you're sitting here listening going, I think I can do that, we would recommend one host site to get your project off the ground, Podomatic.com. Yes, sir, cuz another fun weekend watching college football. My goodness, a lot to chomp on regarding Michigan and Michigan State. But let's start with the obvious. A lot of Michigan fans are really grumbling. They're really cranky regarding what's going on with that offense, regarding what's going on with Wilton Speight. They're not sitting back and going, look, this is our guy. They're saying, look, every time they see a high pass, every time they see a turnover, they're really putting the heat on Wilton Speight, because I think what they're doing is they're saying to themselves, how is this going to play versus big-time opponents? How is this going to progress when we have to face an Iowa, when we have to face an Ohio State? Potentially, if we get into a bowl game or a meaningful game, how's this going to play out? And people are asking, and I think fairly, maybe the skepticism is a little bit too strong, but they are asking fairly, what can this team do with Wilton Speight? And when they come back and start analyzing their answers, they're not happy.
This is the thing. As I was watching the Cincinnati game, I sat there and thought to myself, and I said out loud, they're going to have to do something different at quarterback. They're going to have to replace him. And I was like, this just isn't working out. He's putting them in bad spots. He's not completing enough passes. He's not taking advantage of defensive breakdowns and the opportunities that are presented to him. So they're going to have to make a change if they want to do anything special this year. If this team is going to be as good as I hope it's going to be, and as good as everybody is projecting it to be, there's going to have to be a change at quarterback.
See, wait, real fast. Are you and other Michigan fans potentially jumping the gun here? The dude is throwing to a bunch of younger, talented individuals without that much experience. Are you jumping the gun here?
I like how you jumped the gun there. And then, I'll pick right back up where I left off. And then I sat there and I thought about it a little bit. And I was like, all right, you can't put that much pressure on him, because you have to realize he does basically, his entire receiving core, whether it be a tight end or a wide receiver, is a freshman, right? His entire offensive line is brand new. So you've got too many different variables at play right now. He's not comfortable. On top of that, he lost all that weight last offseason, right? So I think he's still trying to figure out his stride and kind of where he's at with everything. You know what I'm saying? There's so many variables that have changed from what you've seen last year. And I think you just have to take a little bit of time. Look, the Big Ten season doesn't really get underway and doesn't really get started here for another week or two. So you have some time to work some things out. And that being said, Air Force is going to be a test. But it's going to be more of a test for the defense than it is going to be for the offense. And I think it is jumping the gun if you're looking to sit there and yank Wilton Speight out right now. You know, I mean, look, if they had the second coming of Tom Brady, great, let's put him in there. If he struggles, great, that's fine, because you know what you're going to get. But nobody can project what he's going to be. Nobody can tell who if McCaffrey's the real deal or Brandon Peters is the real deal. Nobody knows. You know who trusts Wilton Speight right now? Jim Harbaugh. And you know who sat there and has led you to 9-3 records the last couple seasons? Jim Harbaugh. You know what I'm saying? He's the coach who sat there and got you a win against Florida. He's the coach who got you a win against Cincinnati when it looked absolutely brutal. That was another awful game that started poorly. And good thing, Michigan's defense is strong and the offense was able to sit there and capitalize. But geez Louise, you're going to have to slow your roll a little bit. Wilton Speight's your quarterback. And like I said last week, do you really feel comfortable when O'Korn's in? I don't. You know what I'm saying? And I have no idea what Brandon Peters is.
So that's why I think people who are saying and preaching patience, they're saying, look, we don't really have a better option. But that still doesn't negate the question. Do you see Wilton Speight, raising his game? You know what he's able to provide. He's a stable force. That game manager, he's not going to, really hurt your team too much in terms of when you want to rein him in. You can just kind of go back to the running game, pound the rock, establish passes to the tight end, and kind of make it conservative. You can rein it in, but versus big-time opponents, when you got to step up, when you got to have your moments where the quarterback's got to thread the needle. He's done it in the past. He's played solid games, but the question I'll ask you is, big-time game, you confident in Wilton Speight?
Yeah, because I don't have another option. You know, I mean,
that's not the question. That's not the question.
I know it's a little bit of a cop out, but
that's not the question. Even the question is, when you see Wilton Speight,
I've seen him do it before. So yes,
okay.
I've seen him do it before. So yes, I think as the season progresses, I think that offensive line will start to gel a little bit more. He'll get more confident in them, and I think that's really where the big crux of the issue is. I don't think he's confident in what's in front of him and what's protecting him. He hasn't seen enough. He hasn't been through enough with those guys yet. I think by the time they get through Purdue, coming up in a week and a half or so, I think that he and they as a unit will be much better off, and I think he'll be fine.
Okay, upcoming for Michigan is Air Force.
Air Force.
So the spread's 24.5. You see them
24.
Air Force?
The line has moved. It's now 24 points.
24 points. Do you think Michigan covers it?
Yes, I do. Let me explain why. I think that defense is the real deal. That's a really good defense. That defense has scored points in their last 2 games. I think that defense will score points this game. I think Wilton Speight starts to settle down a little bit. I mean, look, the burner's turned up on him right now. Everybody wants him yanked, like you just said. His coach has come out and backed him, has showed, confidence in him, and I think that's going to go a long way. I think that this offensive line has probably their best game so far this season, and I think the run game gets going. It'd be really nice if that run game could really sit there and start firing and clicking on all cylinders. Again, that goes back to some of the struggles that the offensive line is having, though. So once the offensive line settles down, it helps the run game, helps the pass game. Everything kind of works. Again, build through the trenches. It's where it all starts. It all starts up front with those 5 guys. So once all that kind of works its way out, it'll be better. I think they have a better game this week. I mean, I think they cover the spread.
I think that Wilton Speight definitely needs a nice performance to kind of quiet the critics. But at the same time, Michigan fans love to critique, and they want to see what's in the best interest of the team. And so I respect them for doing it. But at the same time, you got to remember, team's 2-0. It's nice to win games while you're struggling. But if you ask me, is Wilton Speight the guy? I think you guys got a 9-10 win quarterback. Can he elevate himself in those big games? I think you just need that little bit more in terms of talent that he doesn't have. So I'm sorry. When you look at it, I see 9 or 10 wins, and I see the same thing with Wilton Speight. Until Jim Harbaugh gets his guy, and whether it's Peters or O'Korn or somebody else waiting in the wings, until he gets his guy and shapes him in the way that he wants, I think you're looking at decent seasons, but not high quality.
But
seasons.
Isn't Wilton Speight his guy? I mean, isn't he really and truly? Look, this is year 3 under Jim Harbaugh, right?
I think that a Michigan quarterback needs to be just a little bit more athletic, can maybe just do a little bit more in terms of when a play breaks down. Jim Harbaugh wasn't fleet of foot, but he could extend a play a little bit by eluding the defender and making some things happen. If you pressure Wilton Speight, his ass is going down.
See, I don't know. I think Wilton.
I do know he's slow as hell.
I think Wilton Speight's his quarterback, though. I think that's his guy. Because at any point this season, right, you heard all kinds of glowing things about Brandon Peters, right? That was the talk. He's pushing both these upperclassmen. He's going to sit there. He's got a chance to sit there and take the reins as the quarterback. And then all of a sudden it petered out. You know what I'm saying? And then it was John O'Korn is really pushing Wilton Speight. John O'Korn. And then O'Korn comes into the Florida game. He has a nice series, but again, doesn't really instill confidence in me, doesn't instill confidence in you. And next thing you know, it's the Wilton Speight show again. So I think Harbaugh has attached his boat to Wilton Speight. So he's going to sink or swim with Wilton Speight. That's his quarterback. That's his guy.
Okay, we'll see where this plays out, but I'm seeing massive disappointment and more anger as the season progresses. But the good thing that you guys can hang your hats on is that Ohio State is beatable. If JT Barrett looks like that against big-time opponents, you guys have a chance to go and do some things maybe at home versus Ohio State this season. So I'll give you credit with that, is that there's a chance. Ohio State is not invincible, but at the same time, they got to work some things out. But I think they will. I think it'll be a nice game when that time comes around, when Ohio State plays Michigan. I think it's going to be a war this year. It's going to be nice.
As long as that defense can stay healthy, that defense is the key for everything. If the defense can stay healthy, and the special teams cannot be a complete disaster like they were last Saturday, Michigan's got a real good shot, whether Wilton Speight's the quarterback, whether John O'Korn's the quarterback, or whether Brandon Peters is the quarterback. I believe that the defense is that good, and the special teams can flip-flop the field for this team in a matter of moments. So as long as those two phases are taken care of, I think Wilton Speight will be the steadying hand. Like you said, he's a game manager, right? As long as he doesn't cost us the game, it'll be okay.
Switching gears, going over to what happened in East Lansing, I thought it was a quality performance. I mean, many people were out there going, oh yeah, I think Western can compete. I think they can actually win the game. And Western looks good. I mean, they were able to get takeaways. I mean, they were able to do some things, both sides of the ball. But in the end, the talent kind of played itself out, and Michigan State is a much more talented team, and they were able to hold on and do some things. The biggest takeaway that I had from that game was, okay, you saw a team in Michigan State in their offense, they didn't rely upon running the ball entirely. They didn't become fixated on it. There were a lot of plays in that first half where they actually passed the ball. You got to see Lewerke do some things as well. And you got to see the talent. Did you see that run that he had?
Yes.
Woo! I was like, is that Mike Vick? Holy cow, that guy, the best part is when you see your quarterback running, he kind of, if you notice about halfway through the run around the 30 to 20-yard line, he kind of slows down like a beat, just a single beat, and turns his head and just fires it back up and through. And I was like, whoa, these are defenders here that are trying to tackle him. And it seemed like he just throttled down for just a second just to see where he was at on the field. He was going so fast, but it was nice to see Lewerke in terms of the performance, throwing a touchdown and getting 2 on the ground. I was impressed with the performance. LJ Scott rebounded. The team looked a lot more organized, and it was a complete effort. Now, there were some mistakes, but I think that this team, I'm not going to go out yet and say they're back, but they're playing competitive ball. And that's all you can ask for at this point in the season. Now, week off, regroup, watch film, go out there and show your mettle. You have to perform versus Notre Dame. You can't give a B- effort against a team like Notre Dame, who's going to come in there hungry as all hell. Brian Kelly's going to be pissed off at the world. I mean, he doesn't like answering questions about 1-point losses. He's a pissed off coach, and his team is going to be out there trying their absolute best to shut up the critics. And I see another slobber knocker. This could be a game that's going to be 1 to 3 points going forward. So Michigan State has to perform. It's a night game. I do think that Lewerke in that offense is going to be up for the challenge, and I think it's going to be the start of something special here at Michigan State. Maybe that estimation of 6 to 7 wins was maybe a little bit wrong. Maybe they just lose 3 games to the big dogs.
The one thing I took out of this game, and you said it when you were sitting there going on, it was more of a complete effort from this football team. Again, you've seen it. We've seen much better work out of the quarterback with Brian Lewerke. LJ Scott seemed like he got a little bit more confident carrying the ball. That defense took care of a high-powered offense, an offense that can score and put up points. So the one thing I took out of it is this team looks much more complete. It looks like this team had to get torn down. Looks like they had to get beaten to the ground. They needed that 3-9 season so they can sit there and they can come back this year and they look hungry. It looks like they have that chip on the shoulder. It looks like that Michigan State football that Mark Antonio has built his program around. Again, I'm not willing to say that they're back and they're going to sit there and they're going to go on and win Rose Bowls, but I think this team is going to be much better this season than it was definitely last year, and I think they're going to be a very competitive group. So you're going to have to take Michigan State serious in every single game. The big question is, what is Brian Lewerke? Is he a passing quarterback? Is he a running quarterback? I mean, look, the guy is able to get it done through the air, and he's also able to get it done on the ground. I'm not sure what he is, and I don't necessarily know that he has to be defined. But again, if I'm the offensive coordinator, I kind of need to know what I got as far as my quarterback. Is he naturally a throwing quarterback who can sit there and extend plays with his legs, or is he a running quarterback who can throw the ball a little bit? Either way, I think it's good for Michigan State.
Real good for Michigan State. And I think that what we want obviously a pocket passer, but you want to have the ability to extend plays. So I think he's a pocket passer. He's a quarterback. But at the same time, in this day and age, you got to be able to extend the play a little bit. You don't want to be reckless. But in the college game, you have an opportunity to kind of elude the defenders, and you have an opportunity to run and make some plays. But in terms of the evolution of anybody that plays that position, you want to be able to read the defense and at the very least make your job easier and throw the ball. But if the play breaks down, to have that weapon of being able to elude defenders and run, it's a great thing to have. The thing that you and I and everybody that watches is going to look at is, do you make the right decisions? Because there's been 1,000 times where we've all seen it where, oh, there's that tight end running right over the middle, wide open. And there's the quarterback going, oh, I didn't see him. And there he's running for 4 yards. And you're like, no, you got to see the open receiver. So as long as he has that balance of seeing the open receivers and only running when there are no other options, then I think it'll be okay. I'm really happy and excited to see what's going to happen with Michigan State. It's nice to see quality football. It's nice to break down the offense, defense. It's nice to see talented individuals doing their job, and it's you're starting to see a little bit more the nonsense and the off the field drama kind of fading now into the background as we get into this season, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I mean, to break off a 61-yard run, that's pretty impressive. And another thing that was impressive was LJ Scott's performance. He looks like he's gained some confidence. I don't know if it's just carrying the ball a little bit more, or maybe he's just settled down, or maybe the coach just sat there and had a talk with him. Like, look, you got to be the workhorse. You're supposed to be the bell cow. And like we talked about last week, they've got 3 guys in that backfield. All of them are capable, fully capable of doing the job. But we sit there and we all believe that LJ Scott is the guy. And if he's going to be the guy, he's got to sit there and he's got to turn out performances like he had this past week. So it seems like he's a little bit more confident. Seems like he's settled down just a bit. And I guess that bodes well for Michigan State.
All is good. Now, before we take our next break, I want you to sit back and enjoy the conversation that Adam and I had with former Tigers manager Jim Leyland. I mean, we had the opportunity to set up this interview because of the fact that I had requested a credential to cover the Michigan Hall of Fame. The induction's going to take place on Friday. And so I said, look, let me help you guys promote the event. And hey, I'd like to talk to potentially Jim Leyland about some current and past stuff with the Detroit Tigers. And thank goodness Jim Leyland was available and we had a great conversation. Sit back, enjoy. Here's our chat with former Tiger Jim Leyland, and he'll be inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame this Friday.
The linchpin of a decade of competitive baseball and the man who helped bring 2 American League pennants and 3 Central Division titles, the former manager of the Detroit Tigers and soon-to-be Michigan Hall of Famer, Jim Leyland, who will be inducted into the Michigan Hall of Fame this Friday evening at the Fisher Music Center. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing excellent. Like I said before, Friday evening you're going to be inducted into the Michigan Hall of Fame. You have anybody special introducing you?
No, I don't really know how they do it. I think they have an MC that must introduce all the Hall of Famers, and then I think you go up there and they just ask you a few questions. It's kind of a quick program, really, which is good. I don't think there's any speeches or anything by the people being inducted, so I think it's just a kind of a little Q&A and for the people that come, and that's pretty much it.
How did you feel the moment you got the news that they called you and contacted you and let you know that, hey, we'd like to induct you into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame?
Obviously, when you get an honor like this, obviously it just means that somebody gave you an opportunity. And of course, in this case, Mike Ilitch's family, Dave Dombrowski, Al Avila, David Chad, John Westhoff, and the entire front office was just, great to me. They gave me an opportunity to be the manager of the Detroit Tigers, which, believe me, I take very seriously. I think it's an honor to manage a major league team, particularly one that I was fortunate enough to sign with as an 18-year-old kid. So to get that opportunity at a point in my life was unbelievable. And, when you, like I say, when you receive an honor like this, it's normally because somebody provides you with an opportunity, and that's certainly the case.
What does it mean to you to be such a beloved figure to not just the Tiger fan base, but also the state of Michigan?
Well, it's nice. I mean, it's obviously nice to be recognized, but, it's usually, it's usually because a lot of other people did good. I mean, look at the way the players played for me. In 2006, I think it was a big turnaround for the entire organization when the Tigers became a family again. The front office was unbelievable. The support that I got from within there was, great. Mr. Ilitch, the Ilitch family, Dave Dombrowski, like I said, all those people, they really supported me. And of course, the key was the players. And we had good players, and I knew that when I came in there. And we just needed to make talent a team. So we were able to do that, and I thought we kind of revitalized Tiger baseball a little bit. I'll always be proud of that. But I think the thing that I'm proudest of during my time in Detroit was the fact that we brought the entire organization back together, as well as the fans and everybody else. We became a big, happy family. It was exciting in Detroit for a lot of years there. Certainly apologize that we didn't get that final big prize for them, but, we obviously did pretty well. We won a lot of games, and, we never lost the first round of the playoffs. A lot of people said, well, Dombrowski got them there, but they always got knocked out early. We never got knocked out early. We won every division series we played, and so, it was just nice to see the fans, all the Tiger gear, wherever you went, Tiger hats, Tiger shirts, people back into it again. And, some of that stretch that I was there was through some very tough times for the city financially, with the auto industry and everything. So it was just a pleasure and an honor to be the manager for the Detroit Tigers. I truly appreciated it.
Speaking of 2006, you gave a post-game presser that has become lore in Detroit. Back then in 2006, was your intention truly to change the culture of the Tigers? And did you think that presser would become as big as it is to this day?
Well, no, I didn't really think about it that much. You don't certainly plan stuff like that. You just react. And when you see something that you need to respond to, you take care of it. And, I just didn't want them to fall into that trap that they had been falling into a little bit. Complacency, and it was okay if we won a few games and lost a few games, that wasn't okay anymore. And it wasn't really anything. It wasn't my way. It was what I believed was the right way. I know when Sparky came in, he said, it's my way or the highway. I didn't feel like that at all. I felt like we're not going to do things my way. We're going to do things the right way. And I tried to really emphasize that. And I knew, I told those guys early on that this is a potentially a World Series team. And, after a while, they realized that, if I did say one thing that was accurate, that was one thing that was accurate. And I truly believed that. I could see this team was really good. They just didn't have a feel at that time, right off the bat to know how to put it together and to know how to have that swagger that I asked them to have, a little bit like the Yankees, and not cocky or belligerent or anything, but I wanted them to have that swagger like, hey, this is the Detroit Tigers. These guys are good. They're coming to town. They're good. And, they did buy into that. And, I wanted to make sure that, they didn't forget about the message that I was trying to send. So early on, we had to, get things straightened out a little bit, which we did. And I don't know, we went on some torrid streak after that. So it was, I don't really know if that had anything to do with it or not, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I wanted to push that club because I knew it was really good.
Sticking with that 2006 team, you mentioned that you had guys who you thought could win a World Series. You thought you had guys who were talented. What were some other key ingredients that got that team to that point? And do you see this current installation of Tigers having similar ingredients?
Well, I think what happened, if you looked at that team in 2006, you already had Pudge there, you had Maglio there, you had Guillen there, you had Inge there. These guys were, veteran players. I mean, they just hadn't won yet, but they were really good veteran players. And then I really think we made a good move when we signed Kenny Rogers. We brought an old veteran pitcher in there, and I don't want to say old, but, a real veteran pitcher in there to kind of stabilize things, the mentality of things. We also brought in young talent like Justin Verlander and Joel Zumaya. So we interjected some young with some old, and then some guys that were in between, guys that were in maybe, about to be in the good part of their careers. So I thought there's a big key and a knack to knowing how to put a team together. And I thought, I wanted to take that young talent. Verlander, you could see, was a young stallion that was going to be good. You could see Joel Zumaya had an arm that was unbelievable at the time. They talked about the bullpens in Detroit. In 2006, we had Joel Zumaya, Rodney, Todd Jones, Jamie Walker. I mean, these guys were good, and so, we put that team together. It came together, I think, because everybody got on the same page. As a manager, if you get your veteran players to buy into what you're trying to accomplish, you got most of it whipped.
Now, speaking of the current roster, obviously we're going to face some tough times with a turnover of talent, going more towards a team filled with prospects. So I want to ask you, as a former manager, now that the Tigers are going to be filled with a bunch of younger players, a bunch of younger prospects, as a manager, what are you looking for in a young player as he makes his way early on onto a major league roster? What does a manager look for in terms of progression and game to game in terms of what he can do on the baseball diamond?
Well, I think that's a great question. That's a great point. And I think that's exactly where we are right now. Like a lot of people, we're just looking at the fact that we're having a tough time winning some games right now. And I understand that, believe me. I've been through it. I went through it right after winning the World Series in 1997 when the Marlins. In 98, we played 38 rookies. We got beat 108 times. So, but I think what you have to do, I think the process that we're in right now, I think Al Avila and his scouting staff did a terrific job of acquiring some talent to add into the organization that was a little short of talent, quite truthfully. And they interjected some young talent in. Now I think the job is, these next few games, 18 left or whatever they got, it's a good time to try to, get an idea who are the most talented players we brought in. So, from the minor league reports to the major leagues, what you're seeing right now. I think that's really important to be judging these guys, to be scouting these guys. Which guys have the highest ceilings? Which guys have the most talent? Which guys have the most flexibility as far as learning power? I think this is a critical time for the Tigers, and it's a very important time, even though the win-loss record is going to suffer. There's no question about that. There's going to be some growing pains. But at the same time, I read a lot of the stuff that people talk about, and everybody felt it was time that you had to trim this roster, trim the payroll. That's the realistic part of baseball. And, you can't have it both ways. You can't get upset when you do that. Nobody wanted to see JD go or Upton go or JV go. But at the same time, you have to do those things when you're gonna revamp and start over. So I think the biggest key now is I think we have a big job on our hand right now. Brad and the coaching staff is to evaluate this talent, see how good this talent is, see which ones are going to be there when you get good again, and which ones can be there when you get good again. So I think there's a big task at hand right now. I think it's very important.
Hot button issue that's going around speaking about this team. If Brad Ausmus is brought back next year, what do you think he brings to the table that makes him a good choice as the manager during this rebuilding phase that the Tigers are going through?
Well, obviously he's a very bright guy. He runs a very good game, and it's hard to judge guys when you're having the kind of year we have, and then we made the trades and we had some injuries to start. I think he's a very bright guy. I think he runs a very good game. I think he's an excellent guy at teaching. He's young. He's in great shape, can do physical work. He can work with the players physically as well as mentally. He can run the game at the same time. So I think he brings a lot to the table. And, of course, that's going to be a decision for Al Avila to make. I don't have anything to do with that. I don't know anything about it. I know I've read where Al and Brad are going to sit down and talk at some point, and the decision will be made. But he obviously brings a lot to the table. There's no question about that. I think he's an excellent manager. And like I said, he is, if you were talking about some guy like me in this situation, it'd be probably time to go to pasture. But you got a young guy in Brad that can do work physically. He's very bright. He runs a good game. He's got a good feel for players. So, if Al and Brad decide that it's a good fit, I'm sure it'll work out. If not, then, who knows what's going to happen. But that'll be a decision that Al and Brad have to talk about, and that decision will be made on some later date.
Do you and Brad have a good relationship, and does he pick your brain sometimes on different topics and how to get through to players and how to do different things with the lineups?
No, he never asked me about a lineup as long as I've known him. I'm in Cleveland right now with the team, to be honest. He's just taking a look at some of Candelaria and some of the guys. We do have conversations. I try to stay out of his hair. If he asks me something, I give him my opinion, which is exactly what it is, and it's opinion. You can, either, accept it or not go along with it, whatever. But, I don't have anything to do with the strategy or lineups or anything like that. Brad knows what he wants to do. He's very well prepared. I watch him in these games when I'm with the team, and he's extremely prepared. He knows exactly what he's doing and what he wants to do. But right now, when you're playing a bunch of young players, it's going to be tough to win games. That's just the way it is. I mean, we have an absolutely great relationship, but I'm not near as involved as some people think I am. It's his team. I stay out of the way. If he asks me something, I give him my opinion. And he's been absolutely more than respectful to me during the time here.
Former Tiger manager Jim Leyland on the phone with us. Speaking of Cleveland, in the midst of a 20-game winning streak, looking like they're poised to make a run this year, what do you think about the Cleveland squad and what's their chances to make a run in the American League?
Well, I think, I think they probably have the best team in baseball right now. But if you remember, right, 3 weeks ago, that's what everybody was saying about the Dodgers. This is a very humbling game, and there's no guarantees whether the streak continues today or not. How they finish up. There's no guarantees once the playoff starts. The playoffs is a whole different ball game, and there's no guarantees. Now, it's Cleveland on paper, and what they've done look like the best team they do. But the Houston Astros are pretty good. Los Angeles Dodgers, they have a great team, yes, but the Arizona Diamondbacks are pretty good. Chicago Cubs, defending champion, Washington National. So there's no given in this business, and it's very difficult. It's very hard to win. I think that's what you find out. Winning a major league game is precious. I mean, it really is. If you win one game, it's precious. Any major league game you win is precious. It's very hard to win. And, Cleveland's making it look easy right now. But postseason time, it's not going to be easy because you're going to be seeing a really good pitcher every day. And they shut the offense down. If you look, Boyd threw a few too many pitches, but Boyd pitched a good game last night. He shut their offense down. They got 2 runs. So you got to be careful, when you pre-crown somebody as champion. I mean, it's just not that easy.
Jim, we'll get you out of here on this. 2-part question for you. While you were managing, what did you find to be the most difficult situation you had to deal with, and what was the most rewarding situation you had to deal with?
Well, I think the most rewarding situation for me when I managed the Tigers is, like I said earlier, we got, we brought the family back to the Tigers. I mean, the fans came back. We do 3 million people, I think, 3 times when I was there. We got the fans into it. We got the front office into it. We got everybody believing. We got the players believing. That was the most rewarding thing, obviously. The most disappointing thing and the most difficult thing was, not bringing that final prize to Detroit and Mr. Ilitch. We wanted that. I know everybody talked about how Mr. Ilitch wanted it and the fans wanted it. Well, believe me, the manager and the coaches and the players wanted it just as bad. So that was a little bit disappointing, but there were so many rewarding times. It was, like I said, it was on manage the Tigers, and we won 700 games while I was there, lost 5-something. Got to the postseason actually 5 times if you count the 1 game with Minnesota. And like I said, never got beat in the first series of the playoffs. Never, not 1 time. And we went to 4 American League championships and won 2 of them. So, had we got that final prize, it probably would have gone down as possibly the greatest era in Tiger baseball, in history of Tiger baseball. and it's still one of the great eras of Tiger baseball. So just to be a small part of that and to be the manager of that team during that time, that's an honor. And it's something that, like I said, I don't take that lightly. I mean, so it was just, like I said, it was an honor to manage for Tiger fans and Tiger ownership. And it's something that I take very seriously.
If you want to see Jim and the other class that's been nominated and awarded the Michigan Hall of Fame, you can go to mshof.org. Tickets still available this Friday, September 15th, the Max Fisher Music Center. Jim, much deserved. You did a great job. You did bring back a great era of Tiger baseball. The organization is lucky to have you still working with them, and we hope for an opportunity to pick your brain on baseball matters in the future. Thank you for joining us.
No, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations.
Man, cuz to be able to chat with Jim Leyland earlier this week was amazing. It was nice to kind of, you can kind of get a sense that he was sitting there, watching the game, maybe over the diamond there in Cleveland and chatting with us. It was a nice conversation to kind of look back a little bit about 2006 and the current stuff too. So to have that opportunity, you just know when you're talking to a baseball manager, a former guy that was in the trenches, going back and forth, and to have that time with him was awesome. Yeah,
a ton of insight there. I love speaking to him. I love his voice.
That smoky, raspy,
yes,
that raspy voice. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. It's great, man. It's like he reminds me of like your grumpy grandpa, even though he's not grumpy. It's just that voice. You know what I'm saying? I love Jim Leyland.
Were you surprised a little bit when you asked regarding how much advice he gives to Brad Ausmus? You think he was downplaying that a little bit? That was probably the one note where he said that Brad doesn't ask that much advice. They do talk a little bit, but if it was me, I'd have Jim Leyland kick my ass out of the office, be like, look, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Dude won a World Series, and when you have Jim Leyland, I'm saying, like, I'm blowing up his phone like, dude, Jim Leyland blocked me today because I've asked him so many questions.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good thing, right? Because Brad Ausmus is obviously, he wants to do things his way. He wants to sit there and forge his own identity. But if I had a guy like Jim Leyland down the hallway from me, or if I could sit there and just call the guy and just have conversations with him, I mean, I would be blowing up his phone all the time, and I'd just be picking his brain about different things, left and right. Yeah, it did kind of surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, but all in all, great conversation. Like I said, the Tigers are lucky to have him on the staff, and great chat. I look forward to hearing, kind of how it goes when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame on Friday. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet him up close and personal.
Shake his hand.
All right. Final segment coming up. We got to talk about the week that was in professional wrestling. It was awesome. And you'll get our review next in the DocNJock Pro-Wrestling Report right after this. If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, if you enjoy the plethora of interviews that we're able to gather here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. The free and easy way to help support our project is just go click through our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub of the operation. It's where you can go to support us by clicking through the Amazon banner, buying tickets to any sporting events. When you go to our website, you help us out by listening to the podcast that we air each and every day. You get a chance to see who's hosting what podcast and when. And so if you're liking what you're listening to, if you want to put a little bit of wind in our sails and help keep us going, because who knows where this can go. I mean, Adam and I throw out ideas each and every day, and our ideas are getting bigger and bigger, and we're able to execute it because of your support. So if you want to support an independent broadcast network in Detroit, visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Always enjoy talking wrestling with you, cuz it was a great week. Oh my goodness, Raw. One of the first weeks where I could say, for the most part, it didn't really lull. They placed the segments perfectly. I was thrilled to watch it. I mean, there are moments when you know a good wrestling show, and the moment is where you blink and it's 11 o'clock, and you're like, whoa. Now, the one point of contention I would make is not the matches per se. I would say the placement of those matches. You can't have the Hardy Boys and Seth Rollins in the main event when you have John Cena and Braun Strowman. Are you kidding me?
I thought the same thing.
You got to close the house with that. You cannot have that. Doesn't make any sense in terms of a show where you have the rundown card. Oh, I see that. If I'm Vince McMahon, that takes me a second. I flick that and I go, oh, if they have placards, I just go, oh, boop, Braun Strowman, main event. That's perfect. Now you got money. But I understand the placement sometimes where you have these matches, but that main event placement was wrong. It was a good match, but it wasn't a situation where you have that as the main event. No way.
This is the one thing I can say about SmackDown in relation to Raw, and this is where I think SmackDown edges them out every single week. It seems like they have this build where they sit there and they'll start with something small, and then as the show goes on, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally you have your main event, you have your payoff. Whereas Raw, it seems almost like it's broken up. There's like segments where, okay, it starts small, build, crescendo, and then, like you said, that lull. There's that drop off, right? And then next thing you know, it's build. It's almost like there's peaks and valleys with Raw. And whether it be the placement of the matches or how the matches are laid out, there's always something that is different with the storytelling that Raw does as opposed to what SmackDown does in regards to the entire show. I think SmackDown has a formula that is down pat, whereas Raw is still trying to find its way. I don't know if it's the 3 hours that makes it difficult or not, but Raw, I think, could learn something from SmackDown.
Now, the way they started the show was amazing. You have Roman Reigns fight Jason Jordan in an effort to kind of show up John Cena and say, look, why did it take you 20 minutes? Jason Jordan, you see a little bit of an involvement. You see a little bit of his development in that match. I thought he did great. The way the psychology went was a great match. You kind of had a belief maybe that he could win the match. At the same time, you had Roman Reigns destroy him and win the match at the end. And the way they utilized John Cena the same way as it was last week was flawless. I thought when John Cena made the comment at the end going back and forth, when he said, look, I'm a drug test and you ain't going to pass me, boom, and he walked out, I thought that was probably one of the top 2 lines of the year in terms of promos. It was perfect, well delivered, perfect timing, and it was a drop the mic moment, and I popped hard.
I actually loved this entire segment. I thought it was great.
It was great.
Again, like you said, you see the evolution of Jason Jordan. During the match, you thought maybe he would be able to win and pull this off, which I liked. I did like that Roman Reigns, I don't know if you noticed this, Roman Reigns was the heel in this match, or at least he appeared to be the heel, while Jason Jordan was more the face, and he was getting the crowd reaction and getting the love from the crowd. I thought that was great. Cena comes out. Now, this is where it kind of loses me a little bit, and this has to do more with them filming for television and not really filming for a live event, and this is something that we've had this discussion when we attended Raw Live. So you got Roman Reigns basically milling about in the ring after the match, and then he's just sitting there milling. They fade to black, cut to a commercial, come back 2-3 minutes later, and next thing you know, John Cena's music hits, and then he comes down to the ring. So before we went to commercial, John Cena was in the back talking about how he's going to go to the ring. So it took John Cena like 5 minutes to get to the ring, while Roman Reigns is just sitting there milling about. Like, that's unbelievable to me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm Roman Reigns, I'm not waiting around for this clown. I'm going to go do what I got to do. You know, like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to either go eat, I'm going to go sleep, I'm going to go lift weights, I'm going to go do something. I'm not going to sit there and just mill about and get booed by the crowd.
Yeah, that's
not happening.
That's the television side getting in the way.
That makes it so unbelievable for me. And this was outstanding. This whole segment, this whole build. It was actually 2 segments. It was great.
It was great. I would say now that you've had a couple back and forth promos, you got to get into some in-ring action. So yes. I thought potentially a way to work it was, dude, Braun Strowman's fighting John Cena. Perfect opportunity. Roman Reigns go out there and kick John Cena's ass, make him lose the match. I think they need now.
I thought that's how they were going to do it too.
I thought, okay,
it's like we're right here with each other, bro. I love this.
Yeah, we want to see the same stuff. But at the same time, you know, you can't just have promos to build up a feud. You need to have the promos, and then you need to have what happened with Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar. They did their stuff. Paul Heyman was able to cut his promo. They called out Braun Strowman. He walked right to the ring and destroyed Brock Lesnar. Now I'm hyped. Now I'm enjoying what I get to see, and I get to go, wow, this is great. Brock Lesnar is a talented performer. He can put over a Braun Strowman, and now, potentially, I don't see Braun Strowman getting that belt. I think that you continue to elevate Brock Lesnar and the legend that he is by giving him that belt, but by having a brutal match. But that's what you do. You got to have Roman Reigns destroy John Cena. I think that at some point, maybe next week or the week after, John Cena's ass has to go through a table, and Roman Reigns has to stand over there, get booed, and he's got to do some damage. They got to now get physical. That's it. They got to start wrestling.
At some point, yeah, there has to be some physicality for this match. And you know, switching over to the Strowman and Brock angle, I thought it was outstanding.
Perfect, right?
He sits there, takes that suplex, no-sells it, pops right back up, and then he just annihilates Brock, and then takes his foot and stands on top of his chest, and you can see Brock sitting there trying to fight his foot off of him and holding the belt up. Dude, like, the only match I want to see is that match.
That's it.
That's
right?
the only match. I mean, it's been such a great build. They've done such a good job with Braun Strowman over the last couple months.
So we got to ask.
So impressed.
Is it time? Do you give the belt to Strowman?
I would.
Okay.
I would. I mean, but that's because I hate Brock Lesnar.
Sure.
Like, I absolutely can't stand Brock Lesnar.
Other highlights of Raw, Asuka's coming. They finally announced it was a great way of having the promo. The Miz, Enzo Amore segment was top-notch. You had both guys rocking the mic. I thought it was cool that Miz announced that he was having a baby during the Miz TV segment. I thought the one negative that I noted in Dash was, dude, you're wrestling. You don't need to have a mic and talk. It just made it look stupid, and I didn't like that.
The match was atrocious.
Yeah,
I thought them going back and forth was very good. And I thought Miz sitting there just basically throwing it all out there. Like, you get kicked off tour buses, you get kicked out of the locker room. You're not
break
allowed
the
to
fourth
change.
wall anytime you want.
Right.
Sure, no problem. But you got to just wrestle. You don't interject the microphone in the middle of a match. It came off clunky and stupid.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that. I thought the match itself was atrocious. I thought it was brutal.
It was,
And
yeah.
like every Enzo Amore match, he always ends up getting just the shit kicked out of him in the end. And just, okay, cool, let's move on.
No doubt. Now, going over to SmackDown, I was hyped. I was like, great, 8 o'clock, Vince McMahon's coming right out there. Let's get it out of the way. So Kevin Owens comes out, and his music is perfect. Comes out, they don't bring out Vince McMahon, which is fine. You can kind of tease it throughout the show, build the ratings.
They bring out Dolph, so.
They bring out Dolph. That was a nice pop, but I like the way the show played out all around. When you have a tag team title match that was that high quality, you have now new champions in the New Day. They reclaim their belt. You have Jinder Mahal cutting a nasty promo, and his confidence, you can see week by week, if it's incremental, he just looks like, now I can stand there for a minute on the entrance ramp. I can command the camera. It seems like he's learning to own what he is. And his promo was great. I think he's getting more comfortable. I thought the matches were high quality. Now, for me personally, I like the angles more on Raw in terms of who's fighting and stuff like that, but I like the wrestling a little bit more on SmackDown this week. I thought that AJ Styles defeating Ty Dillinger was amazing.
That was a really good match.
I thought the match quality on SmackDown was really entertaining. I thought SmackDown was an enjoyable show, paced very well. I thought some of the angles progressed and some were established. And then when you have the final segment that they had in regards to setting up Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens, we all knew it, but to interject Vince McMahon and to have him get his ass kicked, and our friends at the Breaking Down the Ring podcast said it, probably one of the best segments of the year. It was great to see. You know, you had a feeling, once Kevin Owens said, do I have the right to kick a McMahon's ass, to go and do that. Vince taking bumps in terms of elevating this rivalry with Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon, masterful.
He is a crazy ass old man.
I thought he was going to die right there.
Dude, that was a legit headbutt.
Dude, you don't got to be doing that at 70 years old.
No.
Taking frog splashes?
Oh my God. Like, here's the.
But now I know. I want to ask you this.
Okay.
In your head, did you wonder, that'd be awesome if you took a 5-star powerbomb? Did you think that? Like,
no,
that would have been awesome.
Because I thought he was dead
or pop
after,
a powerbomb.
after the headbutt.
That would have been awesome if he did throw. I was like, maybe throw him into the ropes, pick him up, and powerbomb his ass. That might have been.
That would be pretty sweet.
That was sweet, but the frog splash and the headbutt was all cool. That's how you make a heel. That's how you elevate Kevin Owens. That's amazing.
And look, the headbutt itself, like I was like, no way. Like, that was a legit headbutt. Like, Shibata in New Japan has like brain damage and almost died because of a headbutt. Like, might not ever wrestle again. Mm-hmm. And you've got Kevin Owens legitimately headbutting Vince McMahon and busting his forehead wide open. And Vince was probably the crazy bastard who came up with the angle and the idea. He was like, look, this is what we're going to do. You're going to sit there and you're going to headbutt me. And you could see that they were sitting there mouthing something back and forth, and they looked like they were angry and yelling. And then next thing you know, Kevin Owens grabs him by the collar and just whacks him right in that forehead. Oh my God. I was like, holy shit. Like, that's a legit headbutt. Legit. You're right, though. One way to elevate a heel, and Kevin Owens, outstanding. Ooh. Outstanding. That was great. And then you got to see Stephanie comes down, so she'll probably be back at Raw next week. She looks good, by the way.
Still looking good.
Yep. Nice spandex all over.
Nice.
So, yeah, and Vince wanted no help to get to the back. I thought that there might have been some more continuation, because I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, oh, man, we still have like a minute or two. I was waiting for Kevin Owens to run back down there and re-attack Vince as he was getting helped out of the ring. I thought it was great, though. I thought SmackDown did a masterful job laying the entire show out and sitting there and doing what they wanted to do and putting things over. I thought it was great. Now,
if you're a fan of wrestling in this part of town, you have to go to Hell in a Cell, because Shane McMahon, Detroit, special relationship.
There's a special relationship.
Dude's getting flung off that cage. Dude's doing something.
Yes.
He's coming off that cage.
He might die.
He's coming off that cage onto the table, because you know they're going to want to put forth a great show that first time at Little Caesars Arena. You know they're going to be competing with basketball, hockey, all the concerts. they're going to want to set their mark. And I think that first show, I don't think is going to disappoint. I'm looking forward to Shinsuke Nakamura, Jinder Mahal. I thought introducing some of that comedy in terms of making fun of Shinsuke and his faces was hilarious. I thought Jinder Mahal's promo was nasty and it was funny and kind of introducing a little bit of race into it. And I like the fact that, hey, if you're going to go with the Asian angle, you have Jinder Mahal fight Shinsuke Nakamura, and hey, whatever happens, happens. I think it's going to be a match that hopefully delivers. Hopefully it's going to be a nice matchup to highlight both these guys.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job laying down some foundations for Hell in a Cell. I think it's going to be great. And like you said, one way to sit there and open up a brand new building is with that. So it's going to be awesome.
Hell in a Cell, Detroit, you thinking about going?
Yeah, I am. I got to sit there and I got to take a look at tickets, though. I haven't actually sat down and looked at tickets. I know they're kind of affordable, though.
They're not bad. They're not too terribly expensive. So far, so good. I'm looking forward to potentially getting down there. That might be the first time I check it out as well, in terms of going to check out the new arena. But man, open up a wrestling show would be great. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. So all in all, I think you and I safely agree. Which show was better? SmackDown this week.
Yep,
all right,
definitely.
So they take a 2-1 lead in the show, in the battle of which show was better for this year. 2-1 in favor of SmackDown. Great podcast, sir. All in all, we got everything in within an hour and a half. Good stuff.
That never happens.
It doesn't. No, I think we timed it perfectly. We got out what we needed to get out, and it was a quality broadcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It was a good show. Look, getting to talk to Jim Leyland's awesome. So that's outstanding.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. If you like these quality broadcasts, think about subscribing on iTunes and listen every single day for quality audio from the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Go Lions.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They count to me. They understand. They talk to me.